Some people could start Saturday night, and we'll finish it on time, I hope. I count everything. So, well, some people have sent me papers that were just a little short, but they were such good papers. There wasn't a very good teacher. I just went ahead and gave them an A. It's hard to take points off for like 100 words or something. For me, I'm not. Even when I was in the Army, I wasn't a very good leader. I wanted to be friends with everybody. So that was, I don't know if you've ever had a heart-to-heart with a colonel that's like, it was fun. I disagreed with him on everything, actually, but, I didn't say that because you don't argue with a colonel, usually. Remember, I was just an NCO, so there's that. So we've actually covered it's kind of a screwy situation because this semester started off with a holiday for this class, but my online class was on schedule, so I kept trying to keep the two classes together, and as a result we ended up a day ahead. So I don't really have a quiz question for today, for example, because I've used all my quiz questions, although there's some great ones that we could talk about, which I would be interested in your point of view, so that still can work. And there's lots of folks that we haven't talked about. There's more to talk about Quine. There is a book that's actually readable by Quine. I mean, all of his books are readable if you have the right kind of preparation for them, but most people don't have preparation for his mathematical logic books because you need to start off with his Introduction to Mathematical Logic, which really needs a teacher to get you through it. But there is a book by Quine and Ullian, I think I spelled it right, which is called The Web of the Leaf, which you can buy, of course, but believe it or not, even though it's still completely under copyright, I have found it out there. Let's see. Yep, so, well, this says limited preview, but the whole book is out there on the internet in some places. Here's a PDF. Although this looks like you have to But I was looking at it just the other day. However, so I'll just use the Wikipedia page to mention it. But we have a wiki. Maybe not. Well, I'll just click on this so you can see what it looks like. But it is out there. And it's short, and it basically just describes from a pragmatist point of view. And so, of course, Quine, because he's so much later than William James and John Dewey, he gets the new title neo-pragmatist, which just means a new pragmatist. He's more recent. But in any case, the reason for this book was because his friend Ulian wanted a book that English majors could read. And so the two of them got together and wrote this book for English majors. And it basically takes the metaphor of a web, just like a spider web, not the internet web, but the web of a spider, and argues that as you grow up, you learn certain core beliefs, which, of course, in the metaphor would be the very center of the web. And as you experience things and go through life, you find the exterior portions of your web get interrupted occasionally by new information, and that kind of messes up the web, and you have to get out there and fix the web, retie it, and so on, to incorporate the new changes into your beliefs. But occasionally you have that event that damages and changes the very core beliefs in the middle of your web, in which case you have to completely rebuild the web. So it's just a neat metaphor for talking about how over the years our experience teaches us how to adapt our knowledge to what we're experiencing. That's just a nice book. It talks about how science works a little bit and things of that sort. So it's a nice one. So if you're bored this summer, have a look at that. I'm sure you can find it on the web. If you can't find it, email me, and I know I still have the link on my computer at home. So that's something about Quine. There's of course lots of interviews with him, but also there are students. I think we already talked about Daniel Dennett. And his philosophy, he was one of Quine's students. In fact, it was thanks to Quine's letter of recommendation that Dennett got into Oxford. And Dennett is also focused on logic and mathematics and language, philosophy of language, when he goes to Oxford. But remember, if you're familiar with his biography, while he was there, he ended up getting interested in the physical sciences aspect of consciousness, how consciousness works. And so he ended up merging the new sciences associated with psychology, neuroscience, AI, things of that sort, with his background in language. And that was his focus for his career. He died on April 19th, just a few days ago, actually. But he was mentored by Quine. Another one who's fascinating, a little bit more difficult. Daniel Dennett wrote books that were aimed at a kind of a general audience, but Robert Brandom is a more of a Hegelian, but he's also interested in the philosophy of language, and so as you read books of his, he's at the University of Pittsburgh, but his huge book, I think, I won't click on it, but A Spirit of Trust is a book that paragraph by paragraph practically goes through Hegel's phenomenology of Geist, or spirit, or mind, depending on how you translate Geist, and he interprets Hegel's main book in light of the impact of modern language analysis. So he basically is adapting Hegel and explaining how Hegel's philosophy does deal with the philosophy of language topics. So it's a fascinating explore of Hegel's work. It's large. In order for you to work with it, you really have to at least be pretty familiar with Hegel's book itself and some idea of the kinds of things that language analysis leads to. So it is a little bit more difficult There are things to prepare for it. Even some of his other books, I think, are also difficult. But if you're interested, that's where that goes. And you can listen to him lecturing on pragmatism and things of that sort in lots of venues. So he's out there and doing a lot of things. But he is difficult. He's more difficult. But besides that, I also wanted to mention Umberto Eco today. He was on my list, and I had at least one person do their paper on Umberto Eco. The neat thing about him, he did die also. What happens to all these people? They keep dying on me. Why is that the case? But he's not only an author of books on aesthetics and criticism and other types of essays on our contemporary events, but he's also a novelist, kind of like Sartre. Sartre, I don't know if I mentioned that Sartre wrote big books that were very philosophical books like Being and Nothingness, but he also wrote lots of plays and novels. So it's interesting that existentialists especially tend to want to express their philosophical ideas through novels. That's kind of fascinating. And Umberto Eco, we wouldn't call an existentialist today, we'd call him a postmodernist. And that's especially reflected in his novels. His most famous one was The Name of the Rose. And that's about a medieval monastery where there's murders going on. And what he's done is written a book that combines the historical information about the Middle Ages and that particular monastery, that it's actually a historical monastery. You could actually visit it today, even though it's a fictional one in the book. There was, of course, a real monastery that it was based on. But also the main character is William of Ockham, even though he gives him a different name in the book, and actually gives William of Ockham characteristics that are very similar to Sherlock Holmes. So he's combining all these different literal or literary elements, and that's really kind of what postmodernism does. One of the buildings in town here in Anchorage that's considered postmodern is the PAC. I don't know if you've ever been to the PAC, the Performing Arts Center downtown. It's a combination of all these different artistic elements from different periods, all thrown together. So it's postmodern. That's something that the postmodern does. Not everybody likes it. In fact, some of my friends think that building is atrocious. I've always enjoyed it. I've always thought it's pretty neat. I don't know. Has anybody been in there?
Where they do the symphonies at?
Yeah. The Performing Arts Center. That's got all that artwork on the outside. Mostly colorful lights and things. Big tall pillars. That go way the heck up. And you think, if you were actually constructing a building for it to be efficient in this kind of climate, that was dumb. The whole building is dumb from that point of view. But nonetheless, it's artistic, I suppose. And they've niched 3 different auditoriums into that one building. And they kept them far enough apart that you could listen to a symphony in one hall while something very noisy is going on in the other one, and they're isolated enough that you're able to concentrate on just the show that you're looking at. That's pretty interesting. So his novels are the same thing. They take all kinds of literary elements and mix them. And the fun for a lot of people who are familiar with those different literary elements is recognizing, aha, that's Sherlock Holmes. Oh, that's Watson. That's, a typical murder mystery of different sorts and so on. So that's fun, and he's interesting. It's a shame he's actually the Name of the Rose, I think, is his best book. He thought his best book was Foucault's Pendulum, which was huge. And I remember reading him saying that the book really doesn't get interesting until after page 450. And he did that on purpose to make sure that the people that got into it were serious